Hey there, y'all. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stringing an STX Super Power head with some jimalax soft mesh. Okay, so this is going to be 10 diamond soft mesh right here. So a lot of times what you'll see is with beginner sticks, they'll be strung with soft mesh. A lot of times factory strung, which isn't going to be the best string job, but the reason why a lot of beginner sticks are strung with soft mesh is because the idea behind soft mesh is that it makes catching the ball a little bit easier. With obviously the mesh being a little bit softer, it helps with, the cushioning of the ball hitting the stick and the mesh to where kids aren't expected to have as soft of hands, right? But with soft mesh, what we can do is we can still string it very, very efficiently to be used for, advanced players as well. So what we're going to be doing today is, like I said, we're stringing this Super Power. The Super Power, as you can see, is a little bit more narrow of a head. So typically when I like to string with soft mesh, I like to string it on wider heads. And I also like to string it with typically with defensive heads. Now, the reason that I like to do it with wider heads, you can get a really nice, good channel with the soft mesh. Now, with a tighter head like this and a tight channel with soft mesh, you can also run into the problem of having too tight of a channel, right? So as you could probably hear me starting to get ahead of that. So without further ado though, I know for a lot of us are probably brand new to stringing, so I'm going to try and pretend like y'all have never strung before in your lives, but still go through this at a reasonable pace. So I also have some red jimalax sidewall spool that we'll be using. So I'm gonna measure out more than enough string for our top string, because we wanna make sure that we have enough string so that way we don't have to go back in time or that lose any time rather, and have to unstring our stick. So that should be more than enough for our top string. I'm gonna go ahead and cut our sidewall string at the same time. Now, for those of you that have maybe seen some of the other videos, we have strung an Iroquois top string before. Today, what we're gonna be doing is just our traditional 9 diamond top string. So if you're unaware of how to string that, this is gonna be an excellent opportunity to learn how to string just your typical 9 diamond top string. Cutting the sidewall strings right here. More than enough for our sidewalls as well. And then what I'm gonna do is we're going to go ahead, bunch these together. We got our lighter, safely burn these and bring the strings to a tip without burning our fingers. So for those of us that are maybe a little bit younger in age, this would be something that you'd have your parents do. You wanna make sure that you don't let this if it catches on fire, that's okay. But what's gonna happen is you wanna make sure that before you actually go to put your fingers on it, that it's not too hot. You can leave yourself with a nasty blister right here. So we're just bringing all these to a tip real quick. Then we're going right into our 9 diamond top string. So this is going to be my top string right here. My sidewall strings, we'll put those off to the side. Make sure that I don't have any clutter right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with my anchor knot. So I'm creating a figure 8, like so. And then I'm going to feed that string back through both holes. And you're gonna wind up with this right here. And now what you need to do is you need to play with it and feed it through. So our knot's gonna look just like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm gonna give myself just a little bit more slack at the very, very top, just in case we do wanna go back and fix anything, although I do not anticipate that we will. Now, whenever we string our 9 diamond or 10 diamond top strings, we wanna make sure that this knot is really, really secured into the sidewall, and we're gonna show you how to do that here in a second. So that way, as you pull through, so we created a little bit more room right there. That way, as we pull through, as we're stringing, we don't accidentally rip the knot through the sidewall. All right, so for those of us at home, as you can see, our very top row of diamonds right here is 10 diamonds, okay? So we can string with the 10 diamonds, but I like to string with the 9. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna find the first 9 diamond row right here, okay? And I'm going to fold it back to the second 9 diamond row. And then as you see right here, I'm pinching these edges, okay? and then we have our 9 diamonds. And as you can see, I'm gonna bring it up to the head right here, trying to find where the sidewalls are matching up to where the diamond is at the widest part. And it's looking like for this one, because we are gonna wanna have as tight of a top string as possible in order to get the best pocket as we possibly can, we are going to start off with we're gonna be ambitious. We're gonna start off with the 2nd string down right here. Now, this is a big hole, so that's the reason why we have this extra big knot, but we're also gonna go through a quick trick on how we're gonna interlock this into the sidewall so it doesn't slip through, okay? So I have my string, I'm going in through the 2nd sidewall hole right here from the outside to the inside, okay? And then I'm going from the front of the mesh through the back of it, okay? Pulling all the way through right here, not pulling too tight right now, okay? And I am then going to go back again, wrapping around through the sidewall, okay? Going again through that diamond from the front side through the back side, making sure that I have the mesh tightened like so. So as I pull down right here, the mesh is gonna be tightened like so. But what'll happen, okay, is because this is such a huge sidewall that this knot can still sometimes pull through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give myself just a little bit more slack again. I'm going to feed the knot underneath the sidewall interlock, okay? And now I'm going to retighten again. And now what should happen, if I do this properly, is that by having the string overlap themselves, okay, as I'm struggling to demonstrate right now, it's always good whenever you do this in real time. So we're right here. Excellent. Okay, so what's gonna end up happening right here is as we go across the top, okay, we're gonna use the first diamond is going to go in the first top string hole, okay? The 2nd diamond, so it's the first available diamond. So our first diamond is attached to the sidewall hole, or attached to the sidewall rather. 2nd diamond's going into the first top hole. Our 3rd diamond is not going to be touched, okay? Our 4th diamond will go towards our 2nd top string hole. Our 5th diamond won't be touched, okay? And then we will continue to repeat that same pattern. But what I'm doing right now is I'm pulling super tight, anchoring this down. Now what I'm going to do is coming through the back of the head, through this top string, or through this top hole rather, I'm pulling through, coming from the front of the mesh, out through the back of it, through this 2nd 9 diamond right here, pulling through, like so, and I'm gonna pull that up a little bit. Now what I wanna do is I wanna center this diamond as much as possible with my hands already underneath this top hole, okay? And it's okay if it isn't perfectly underneath there just yet, because as we pull across, okay, everything's gonna tighten up and it's gonna even out a little bit. So I start to lock that in place a little bit. So right now, this is what we have. I'm gonna feed my string back through the back of the mesh, out through the front, and then we should be right here. Now I'm going to go back through the front of the scoop. So this is where we are right now. And then I'm going to bring that underneath and through that string. And I'm gonna start to tighten a little bit. And as you can see, this right here is going to be our basic, or the basic idea of the interlock of what's gonna be keeping our top string to the scoop right here. So what we wanna do is we wanna try and center that as much as possible. Now my strings right now are pretty loose because I was trying to demonstrate. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna retighten everything. And this is where we are right now. So as you can see, the diamond isn't sitting perfectly underneath this top string. That is more than okay. What's gonna happen is as we continue to string across the rest of the top, okay, the tightness is gonna start to pretty much balance itself out. All right, so now we're going into our next diamond. So we're skipping this third diamond, going into the fourth diamond. Okay, I'm going, sorry guys, from the back of the scoop through the front of the scoop, from the front of the mesh through the back of the mesh, pulling down from here. I'm going to go through that same diamond again from the back through the front, pulling that same thing, or that same string rather, from the front of the scoop through the back of the scoop. So we're right here, and then I'm going to feed that string again down through, and then this is what this interlock should look like when done super loose. Okay, so I'm going to go back again. How I tighten this up is I'm pulling on where this string is anchored, first in that diamond, pulling across nice and tight, pulling the mesh across nice and tight, and then we're going to go ahead and pull this string through. And then this is what we look like right now. So as you can see, this diamond right here is centered just a little bit more underneath this top string hole, that as we go through the rest of the scoop, everything will look symmetrical. All right. And then skipping the fifth diamond right here, going to the sixth one, going from the back of the scoop through the front of the scoop, going from the front of the mesh through the back of the mesh. And then as you see, it's going through this hole right here, this little space that we've created. Okay, starting to center it just a little bit right here. You'll notice that it might look a little bit bunched up right here as you go through. That's okay. Everything's going to start to bounce itself out. And if it doesn't start to bounce itself out, what you can do is you can go back through and you can adjust it, which is why we left ourselves so much string on this backside. Okay. So from here, we are going through the back of the scoop again, through the front of it, from the front of the mesh through the back of the mesh. And I did that backwards. Excuse me, y'all. We'll edit that part out. We're going through the back of the mesh, through the front of the mesh, front of the scoop, through the back of the scoop, pulling down into our basic interlock again, and I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it up again for y'all. We want this top string to be super, super tight. We don't want any type of slack at all on our top string. This is what's securing our mesh to our head. We need to make sure that we're not giving the ball any extra space to get stuck in the mesh, especially with soft mesh. So we're gonna go ahead and we are going to skip this seventh diamond now, working that same pattern that we've done on the eighth one, from the back of the scoop to the front of the mesh, back of the mesh, centering, going back, tightening everything up. And then we have our last 9 diamond, okay? So we wanna make sure that we go ahead and we attach it in the same spot that we did on the other side, which is gonna be our second hole. So when I do this right here, I'm going from the back of the 9 diamond through the front of it, from the inside of the sidewall hole through the outside, wrapping back around the sidewall, going from front to back through this diamond again, and then from the inside of the scoop to the outside of the scoop. And then you'll notice too, I'm gonna feed right through right here. And then we're going to tighten all the way. Tightening like so. All right, and as we can see, that is a huge sidewall hole like we addressed. So if this knot right here isn't sitting right, what we can try and do is we can feed it back through underneath right here as everything's pulled down and tightened down, and that should secure it down pretty well. Or we can do our double knot as well, but for right now, we're just gonna leave it. All right, moving on to the sidewalls. Starting off with our same fat knot that we started off our top string with. Which is our figure 8, and then feeding that string back on all the way through. You're gonna wanna leave yourself a little bit more room than I am right here. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do. All right, so where we're working, this next spot, we're going to our first row of the 10 diamond right here. So even though we strung our top string with the 9 diamond, whenever we go through our sidewall, we are using every row of 10 diamond. We are not skipping any rows. We are not using any of the 9 diamond rows to interlock with, okay? We are only using the 10 diamond rows. And that is something that is pretty consistent whenever we string with 6 diamond mesh, whenever you string with meshes that end with like an even number, right? Although there are the 5 diamond mesh, 7 diamond mesh, it does exist, okay? This is 10 diamond mesh, right? So if you're just string with 6 diamond, you would string similar. You would use the 6 diamond rows, you wouldn't be stringing with the 5s, okay? Now what we wanna do is we wanna pull this super, super tight like we talked about, okay? So I'm gonna pull this with my finger to see how far down I can get this diamond to the sidewall. It looks like I can get it down to the 4th hole on this proton. So what I'm going to do is we're actually going to take up more of this space right here, and we're going to feed our sidewall string through this same hole, because it's a fat hole that our top string's in, making it even harder for one of those strings to accidentally pull through, okay? And so the basic interlock that we're gonna start off right here to really pull this mesh down tight with is going to be going through the back of the mesh through the front of it, and we're gonna try and stretch it all the way down to this 4th sidewall hole right here, or excuse me, 1, 2, 3, yep, 4th sidewall hole right here, going from the outside of the sidewall through the inside. And then notice where my string finishes as I pull through right here. We should look like this right now. I'm gonna take that same string, I'm gonna feed it through the same diamond. Now, as I start to pull down right here, what you'll notice is this locks this diamond in super tight, okay? And it also creates really good spacing right here in this diamond, which is going to start to create a nice channel and defined pocket, and is gonna create that tightness that we're also looking for in that top part of our lacrosse stick in general, right? You never want a loose part up here by your scoop. That's gonna create a lot of inconsistency, okay? And so now we are going to go one sidewall hole at a time together. So we're gonna do the same thing we did on the other side. So I'm feeding it through where my top string finished, because this is a big old hole. String goes in there pretty easily. We're gonna use that exact same technique, and let me go ahead and cut off part of this top string, because we know this right here is not gonna be what we play lacrosse with. Although I'm sure some of us have seen people running around out in the field with super long strings on their sticks. Okay, so taking this string from the back of the mesh through the front of it, and it's that first 10 diamond, going through this 4th hole from the outside through the inside, pulling the string so it interlocks just like so. Now we're gonna go from the front of the mesh through the back of the mesh on that same diamond, and then tighten. All right, and so as we can see, we have that on both sides, and that interlock right there is one of many excellent ways to really pull the mesh super, super tight to the sidewall at the very, very top. You're not gonna wanna do that necessarily a lot through the bottom. Not to say that it doesn't work. There's just better ways to kind of create the bag of the pocket, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So for this second one, what we're gonna do is I'm pulling down on the next row of 10 diamonds. So I'm skipping this 9 diamond row right here. We don't need it. We're not stringing with that. Ignore it, okay? Make sure that you do not string with it. We're gonna pull on the next row of 10 diamonds. Now I wanna pull down really, really tight. This will bring me, it looks like I can skip a hole on this sidewall. Okay, so we're gonna use that same interlock going from the back through the front, from the outside of the sidewall to the inside, and we skipped a hole right here. So we look like so, we look like so. Now remember, we're gonna go back through that same diamond from the front through the back, and then we're gonna pull. And we're pulling super tight. And you'll notice that before I did that too, and this is the type of interlock to where as we pull on this one, it tightens the interlock up before it. So you wanna make sure that before you move on to the next sidewall, that the sidewall that you did before it is already tight. We're gonna do that same thing with the next one. So from back to front, through that same diamond, outside to inside, pull through. We've done this now 3 times, this is the 4th time. From front to back, and now we're gonna pull down. And the reason why you'll see that I'm moving the head in different spots is this right here is a really, really tight pull. Okay, so for those of us that are a little bit younger or a little bit more frail, pulling on these sidewalls right here is going to be a little bit difficult. Now, a way that you can still try and mimic this pocket without having pulled down as far, without pulling these diamonds super far down the sidewall, is to just go up just a little bit more, right? So if you're having a hard time stretching it down all the way, just move it up just a tad bit more. But as you work your pocket down, you are still going to want to try and stretch it out towards about the middle of the throat of the stick right here, okay? So, or the face of the stick rather. We're going to do this interlock one more time. So from the back, through the front, outside of the sidewall, through the inside, pull down, going back up through the diamond again. Pulling down. Look how tight everything is right there. Very, very tight. Starting to come together. Same thing, front to back, back to front, outside to inside. Right here. Getting awkward with my arm positioning, y'all. Front to back, same diamond. Pull down. All right, and now from this point right here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull down on both the strings, and I can really see what my pocket is starting to look like. So I'm gonna pull down, I'm gonna hold it nice and tight so I can see where I am. Kind of simulates if the strings were to be tied down all the way through the rest of the pocket, what the top of the pocket looks like, if that makes sense to y'all. Okay, so right here, this is soft mesh, so it's all right that it looks like this right here, but what this is telling us, okay, is that we're probably gonna wanna tighten it up just one more pretty tight. So instead of us starting to work on our pocket depth right here, okay, what we want to do is we want to tighten up this top part just a little bit more. So stringing with soft mesh is a little bit trickier than stringing with super soft mesh, because that's what this is. This isn't semi-soft. This is really soft. Stringing with soft mesh is difficult. So we're gonna use that same interlocking pattern again. Okay, so from back to front, outside to inside of the sidewall. And I really hope that this doesn't create too tight of a channel. And we'll know right away, pretty much. So we'll actually know right after we string this sidewall if it's too tight. So back to front, outside, inside. Start to tighten it up. Same diamond again. It's that same interlock that we've used. We're just using it on that next row of 10 diamonds right there. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and grab those strings again. Pull down, super tight. Grab the throat. All right, and so as you can see right here, we can start to form and see like where our pocket's going to be, all right? This is looking pretty tight. So what we're gonna go ahead and do right here is we're gonna start to create the the bag of the pocket of the pocket, right? So this is going to be a completely different type of method to how we strung the sidewalls before. So instead of going from back to front now, we're actually going to go from front to back, and we're using the next row of 10 diamonds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other side too, from front to back. Now I want to see what this pocket looks like if I were to only string it with what we refer to as a single, okay? And so what I just did right there is I took a single diamond from each side right there, and if I were to tie it to the next sidewall, this is kind of where my pocket would shape, and it shows me where my next diamond is also going to fall, okay? And so that next diamond is looking like it's going to fall above this next sidewall, so stringing it underneath it is going to be very difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to make this a double. So with that same string, we're going to go to the next row of 10 diamonds. We're going to go from the front to back again. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side right now. From front to back again. Let's go ahead and tighten them up. This is saving us time from unstringing our stick, is what it is. Because we could string this up, but the further we go down it, the more time it's going to take to go back and fix it. So this double is going to work. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the string. We're going to go to this next sidewall hole. We're going to go from the outside of the sidewall through the inside. We're going to pull like so. And we're going to tighten as tight as we possibly can. So this is what we have right here. Pretty tight, anchored, secured, not going anywhere. It will loosen up after you let go of it, but like I said, as you move on to your next one, you'll retighten it. So we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We went from the outside of the sidewall to the inside of it, bringing it to here. So this is where we are, nothing tight yet. We're making sure that both of these 10 rows of diamonds are sitting on this interlock right here that we have into our sidewall, if y'all can see that. All right, very good. So let's just see how we're starting to look right here for those of us that aren't seeing a stick come together yet. All right, excellent. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna start off with another single. So we're going from the front of the mesh, okay? And all I'm doing is I'm on the outside of the sidewall right here, bringing it to the inside. Okay, so I'm from the front of the mesh through the back of it on this next row of 10 diamonds, pulling down. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Grab strings, pull down. Let's see what the pocket starts to look like right here as I start to push up. All right, so similar to what we had last time, the diamond underneath our single, which our single is this diamond right here. So the diamond underneath this, okay, as we form our pocket, is sitting above this next sidewall hole. So that means that we're gonna wanna include it in the interlock that uses that. So we're gonna make this one another double as well. So we're gonna start from the front of the mesh to the back of the mesh. We're gonna go ahead and go through the side of the sidewall, through the inside of it, start to pull through, make sure that both rows of diamonds are above where we're interlocking to the mesh. We're gonna go ahead and do the other side now. So I create this into a double. And you'll notice that right here what I'm doing is I just noticed that the sidewall above it was a little bit loose, so I'm tightening that up by pulling down super hard before I make this interlock. All right, so now I have that double in place. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and start the next single. So we're going from the front of the mesh through the back of it again. As you can see, we're really working our way down the sidewall right here, almost done. The heavy lifting part of this has been done, right? Not to say that in this, as we continue to string this may turn out to be a little bit tighter than what we want. So we might go back and adjust it, but we'll see at the very end. It's looking like it's coming together very, very well. Stringing a skinny head with soft mesh is a trick, is a talent. All right, so we have our single in place right here. This is looking really, really nice. So we see that as we start to create our pocket with our hand, where this diamond is, and we see that this next one isn't necessarily sitting on top of this sidewall hole. Now this is really, really important. So right here we can really start to see the shape of our pocket. Everything looks really good. Our channel isn't too tight right now. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're really utilizing the rest of the throat of this stick to really show where the sweet spot of the pocket's going to be, where the ball is going to sit a lot, right? So what we're going to do right here is we're just going to go ahead and use this as a single. So we just went back-to-back doubles. So now we're going to use our single. So like I said, I went through the front of the mesh, through the back of it right here. Now I'm going to go through this next sidewall hole from the outside through the inside. And then I'm going to pull up on that next row. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the next thing on the other side. And there is a chance that after, we do this next sidewall that we see that we might want to make this one a double. But I'm not thinking so. I'm thinking that we might be singles all the way out. So we're going to go ahead and start our next single. And you guys can really start to see like this is coming together really nicely. So we're going from the front of the mesh out through the back of it. So just right here. Same thing on the other side. And these methods that we're using right now aren't proton power specific or super power specific, sorry. They're not at all. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and create a single right here as well. We're just gonna go ahead and bring it into the sidewall. Looking really nice right now. Same method that we've been using, outside to the inside. Tightening it up. All right, and as you can see, we are coming to the end right here. So what a lot of people do is they make the mistake and they use too many diamonds towards the end right here, and what it does is it starts to shift the pocket down low. I want to see where we're just at right here. So if we were to not use the next row of diamonds and tie it off as a bottom string, where we would be. And that's what I think we're gonna do. So what we're gonna go ahead and do from this spot, okay? So we've used our last row of 10 diamonds that we're gonna use for this sidewall. So we have our sidewall from here. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna tie off this sidewall string. So now we're gonna go from, we're not going in through any mesh at all on this, okay? We're gonna go from the inside to the outside of this next bottom hole. And going from the inside to the outside sometimes is a little bit trickier. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side, making sure that everything's nice and tight before we go ahead and finish off our knot. So from here, I'm gonna one more time, because I like to tie my knots super, super tight. I'm gonna pull on the strings tight. I'm gonna give it one more good look over. We're looking pretty good. So this last row, this next row of 10 diamonds, we're actually gonna utilize in our bottom string, I believe. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do our basic, why do I wanna call this an overhand knot? Overhand knot, sure. Basic knot right here. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and use a bottom string. So I have a little bit of this pink shoelace left, which is gonna work great as a bottom string. I like to use shooting strings and shoelace for bottom strings versus sidewall string or nylon, just because the sidewall string and nylon has a tendency to sometimes tear the mesh, as well as sometimes also break, not necessarily these heads, but different bottom string or bottom holes of different lacrosse heads. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna burn the other side real quick. Proton or Super Power has a little bit funkier of a bottom, so what we're gonna do is this, our last, what I guess looks like a sidewall hole, but you're not gonna utilize as a sidewall hole, is gonna be our first bottom string hole. So we're gonna start off by bringing the tip through that. I'm going to go through my next 10 diamond row, okay, and I'm bringing it from the front of the mesh through the back of it, through that first diamond. and pulling through, bringing it across and then down through the 5th diamond. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And down, keeping everything looking nice and pretty. And we're gonna go ahead and go through our first little hole down here, feeding it through with the tip, pulling down, and then we're gonna go ahead and go through that next little hole, going back up it from the bottom up. And then we're gonna go through the 6th diamond from front to back. And then we're going to go ahead and bring it through that 10th diamond. And this is always a moment of truth too, for at the very, very end, you'll know if, well, not necessarily always know, but if you have a discrepancy in your sidewalls being used equally and the rows of diamonds being used equally, you'll notice that when you go to try and finish off, that one of your rows will be sitting a little bit higher, right? And so that is not the case right here. So we're gonna go ahead and pull down just a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and shape the pocket. Looking pretty nice. We're gonna go ahead and tighten it up just a little bit. And so this is actually sitting one row of diamonds lower than what I would typically string. So I would typically string it on the bottom string on that 9th row directly underneath the last 10 row that we used. And right now I'm, kind of shaping the pocket to see, as it breaks in, is that going to be something that, and that could be something that we end up wanting to do, right? Because this is soft mesh. You can see that, it's pretty mid to high pocket. We don't have any shooting strings in here, right? So let me talk to y'all about my theory on shooting strings. So I used to be a huge fan of shooting strings. Used to have the U's, used to have the rollers, used to have 4, used to watch tons of box lacrosse. Those guys have, a crazy amount of shooting strings. And the double U's used to be a huge staple of the outdoor game too. And it used to be something that I had in my stick all the time. And then through a couple different things, so they changed the rules to where you couldn't have sidewalls, I believe it was like 4 inches below the scoop of the head or something like that, give or take. And I also came across a magazine piece that talked about, and it was documenting, I don't remember exactly the Native American, but it was a Native American that strung lacrosse sticks. And he was talking about how when he strung lacrosse sticks, he tried to string with the mesh to where he didn't necessarily need a shooting string afterwards, and that the shooting string was used as more as an adjustment piece. Right? To where if the channel of the mesh wasn't creating enough feel for the ball coming out on the release, that the shooting strings could help create more feel. And ever since I've started stringing with a huge focus on the channel being, mainly responsible for the feel of the ball, not to say that having a good shooting string above this, and that's probably what we'll end up doing, okay, isn't going to be effective, but stringing your pockets with the intent that you're not going to use a shooting string is how you want to string your pockets, because that's going to give you a much more consistent feel, a much more consistent release, and at the end of the day, that's going to make you a better lacrosse player, right? So what we're going to go ahead and do right here is I am going to just go ahead and tie this knot like so, because this is a shoestring, so if I were to do the individual knots on each side, this would be very, very tight, and getting those out wouldn't be very fun. So I can still get a nice tight knot by just going like so. So this is our stick right here. So this is our our Super Power rather. The reason I keep saying Proton Power is because this is a long family of STX heads. So this looks pretty good. What we'll go ahead and do is, like with the other heads, we will go ahead and give this a field test. Since this is soft mesh, it has a just very tiny bit of breaking in to do. It isn't all the way broken in or anything like that, but it's going to be a lot more smooth and game ready than some of your harder meshes and some other mesh variances. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all sticking around. I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see y'all soon.